Thank you very much, Steve. And for those of you watching at home on YouTube, good afternoon, good evening, good morning, good night, whatever time it is where you are. But for those of you joining us live, good afternoon. Thank you very much for joining us. My name is, in fact, TJ Hatter. I'm here on behalf of New York State Attorney General Tish James. She's my third AG and by far my favorite here with the New York State Attorney General's office. And I'm here with my great partner, legislator Bridget Fleming, who helped. She's partnered with me for so many of these events throughout her district and elsewhere in Suffolk County. She's a powerhouse. And I just want to thank Bridget and her staff, especially Cheryl, for helping me and the Attorney General put together programs like these, because we are public servants, Bridget Fleming and myself and Tish James. We are here in order to do our best to protect the public and to let you know of things that we're aware of that can help protect you and your family. So that's the purpose of this presentation today. The presentation is titled Smart Seniors, and seniors, in my experience, are incredibly smart. The problem is that these scammers are incredibly smart as well. And what happens is that the anatomy of a scam is really a three-pronged attack, and they'll use whatever they think can work on you. They'll use kindness if they think that will work on you. They'll use fear if they think that will work on you. They'll use intimidation if they think that will work on you. Fear and intimidation are different. I'll talk about scenarios with each one, and I will leave plenty of time for your questions, because that is oftentimes the best way for us to communicate, because that might be where you tell me something that I don't know. That might be where you tell me about a scam that you've heard about, or has called you or emailed you or made contact with you, a family member or a loved one, that perhaps myself or legislator Fleming have not heard of yet. Because these scammers are incredibly smart. It's their business to scam. And they do a very good job of it, because if they didn't, they wouldn't be in business for very long. So what we're going to talk about here are some of the ones that we're hearing most about. But again, I want to hear from you, and I want to hear so as soon as possible. In the chat section of the Zoom, myself and Steve have placed a couple of links there for you to take a look at. The most important one to start with is our brochure. Normally, pre-COVID, these events take place in person. So you'd be seeing myself in my new goatee and my three-piece suit there with you in East Hampton. That would obviously be my preference, because one of the delights of doing these presentations is getting to go to the local places in East Hampton, as you all well know from being there, is beautiful and a wonderful day to spend, even a cold January day. So I'm sorry I don't get to see you in person, but as we go forward with these events via Zoom in the new normal, these things are all available online. This brochure with a lot of good information there is available online. You can click on it now via the Zoom, I believe, Steve, and you can order them from our website. That's ag.ny.gov. You can find them there to look at them, and you can place orders for them if you have someone in your life who much more would prefer tangible. And I'm sort of like that too, actually. If you look in the background here, I have a bookshelf. I prefer books. I like the old school holding things. So let me talk to you about a couple of scams that we're seeing here. Let me start with something that's actually incredibly new. We broke some news this week, the Attorney General's office and Tish James, and actually Legislator Fleming deserves a lot of credit for helping us spread the news on this particular instance. But this week, we became aware of consumer fraud happening with the Homeowner Assistance Fund scam. Now, I don't know if that pertains to anybody who is on this call, but I will just outline very briefly what that means. Or if you're watching on YouTube, this might apply to you as well. New York State has received about $540 million for the Homeowner Assistance Funds, which is available for some New York homeowners who had financial hardship due to the pandemic. That has happened to many people. So homeowners who are interested in learning more about that fund or applying to those funds, make sure that you're contacting somebody that you know is associated with those funds. So in this case, there is a website that's newyorkhomeownerfund.org, and there's a phone number, 844-776-9423. You want to make sure that you're communicating with someone in terms of homeowner assistance funds that is absolutely 100% associated with that program. And when I talk more about the anatomy of a scam, I'll talk to you about how scams are a lot about control. And you are always in control of whom you talk to, whom you reach out to, and especially whom you give your money to. But Steve, I believe I saw that Legislator Fleming had popped in and joined us very briefly. I think I would like to give her the opportunity if she's ready to say a few words. So Steve, if you can take her off of mute, and Legislator, if you can hear me, I'd love you to say just a few words before I get rolling here a bit.
Hi, TJ. You look like you're in a radio station. I love it.
Guilty as charged.
So professional. So thank you so much for including me in this important conversation. For those of you who don't know me, I am Bridget Fleming. I'm your Suffolk County legislator. And my office have teamed up with the with the Lieutenant Governor's, with the Attorney General's office.
You team up with a lot of people, Bridget, in fairness. You're a powerhouse.
All these prosecutors, I was an assistant district attorney myself. I ran a fraud unit in the city for almost a decade. That's many years ago now. I've been in my husband and my son and I have been out here in Noyak for 20 years plus. But at any rate, yes, we work in partnership with many great prosecutors across the country and across the region, because this is just such an incredibly important important topic, because we see it now more and more, and we don't want to alarm people, but we do want to ensure that our seniors in particular are being really vigilant about the bad actors that are out there. As access to people's information becomes more available because of computers and because of the internet, and now there are apps on your phone and a lot of ways for bad actors to get to your information. So we can keep you safe, and but in order to do it, we need to make sure that you're aware of the kind of traps that are out there, and that's what TJ is here to present to you. My district office is on Washington Street in Sag Harbor. Our phone number is 631-852-8400. If there's ever any way that we can be helpful, if there's any way that we can answer questions for you, we are here to serve you, the public. And we have a particularly soft spot for folks who may feel vulnerable out there in the world. So please rely on us. I'm so pleased to have a chance to say hi. I hope the year treats everyone well. I hope that COVID is not making your lives too difficult. We're going to get through this together. But I'm deeply, deeply grateful for TJ to be here with us today and share this important information. So thank you, TJ, for giving me a chance. I'll turn it over. Listen with your ears wide open, because these are really important things that TJ is going to share with you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, legislator. And on her behalf, I put in her number in the chat again for anybody who was trying to write it down. It's 631-852-4000. And that's in the chat if you want to give my friend legislator Fleming a call. She's terrific. So legislator, we were just talking about, and I'll let you go, but I'll go back to what we were talking about. We were talking about something that legislator Fleming and I had actually touched base on Tuesday, which was the homeowner assistance fund scams. I'm going to put the link as well to the press release that I was referencing before on here, so that way folks can click on it if they are so choosing. It talks about scams that target folks who are trying to access those funds, the homeowner assistance funds. And the basic tips that I'll go over really apply for any scam, but for this one in particular, it's just being cautious of any online ads, telephone solicitations, or anyone coming to your door promising you these funds without you knowing that they're associated with the program. You have to be careful of solicitations from people or from companies with out-of-state phone numbers. Don't give your financial information to anybody who is somebody you don't know, and never pay an upfront fee for any of these services. So those are just some of the tips associated with this, and we will see they carry forward as we talk about other scams. So let's talk about the anatomy of a scam. The anatomy of a scam is basically a three-pronged attack, and it's whatever these folks think will work on you. They'll use kindness if they think that will work on you. They'll use fear if they think that will work on you. They will use intimidation if they think that will work on you. Fear and intimidation are different. I said that before. Let me give you some examples now. Just out of curiosity, how many people here have ever gotten a phone call or an email offering them a free cruise? When I'm doing this in person, I can see the hands back. But my guess is, based on some of the messages I'm getting here privately in the chat, everybody's gotten that phone call, right? These are always a scam. It's actually illegal for a sweepstakes or a lottery to conduct their business over the phone, period. It's illegal to call and tell you won something in a contest you never entered, period. It's called fraud. These are illegal 100% of the time. And it's a kindness scam, because the folks there, if you answer the phone, will be extremely nice to you. They'll basically say, hey, congratulations. It's cold outside. You're going to this beautiful exotic location. The place sounds great. It's at a very discounted rate. They'll ask you for your personal information, and they'll say the information is to cover the taxes on your winnings or to secure your seat on this fabulous new cruise that they say that you won. And with as much certainty as anybody can say in front of you and say anything, you didn't win. You did not win a single thing. That's a scam. So that's the kindness scam. But the hook, whether it be kindness, fear, or intimidation, the hook is always immediacy. It's always give me money now. There's always a time element involved because it goes back to the notion of control. You are always in control, ladies and gentlemen, of who you answer the phone, if you answer the phone, whom you talk to, what information you give them, and if you give them any of your money. If I may, please do not send these people your money. Now, as a personal story, because I know a lot of these are scam calls, and now because of COVID, we're all home so much more than we would have been under normal circumstances. But, my father never answers the phone in his and my mom's house. And you ask him why, he says, it's never good news. That's why. It drives my mother absolutely nuts. And it's been like that for 40 years. And having worked for the Attorney General's office and dealt with all these scams and particularly scam phone calls, I have to say that my father is right. It's never good news. It's never somebody you want to talk to. And having to tell my mother that my father was right infuriates her as well. But there are more than a few phone scams here. I already talked about the sweepstakes scam one, the free cruise, the IRS. And again, these are like Law and Order. A lot of these scammers use the same principle of rip from the headlines. So you'll see a lot more IRS phone calls this time of year and increasing as we get closer to tax date because they know it's on your minds. So they're looking to see you're thinking about the IRS and somebody from the IRS calling you and saying you're in trouble. That's fear and intimidation. That's actually an intimidation play. The IRS will never call you, ever. So if you remember anything else from this, other than that Legislator Fleming is terrific, and so is Attorney General James, that we are genuinely trying to help you here, the IRS will never call you. If there is an issue with your taxes, they will communicate to you in writing, and there's a local office here in Suffolk County that you deal with. The IRS will never call you, ever. Also, if you get something in the mail that says it's from the IRS, contact your local congressman to be sure. Now, depending on where you live, that could be different people, but that information is available online. You just contact them and make sure if you get something in writing. But it is never, repeat, never true over the phone. These people use fear and intimidation, and they are total frauds. Please do not send these people your money. So that's intimidation. The last example I'm going to give, and then I do want to open up for questions in a little bit, is fear. And this one is a very popular scam. It's one that you likely know about. And this is one that, as someone who truly loved his grandparents and loves them still, but they're no longer, unfortunately, with us, loves them. It's the grandparent scam. It's the grandchild scam. Someone calls you up and they say that your grandchild is in trouble. He or she was hurt in an accident and needs money for a doctor, or the car was damaged and need money to fix it, or they got arrested and need money for bail. And the key to identifying this scam is the following sentence. Please don't tell mom and dad. Please don't tell his or her parents. Sometimes these scam artists will pretend to be your grandchild's friend. Sometimes, and this is particularly awful, they'll pretend to be your grandchildren. They'll call up and they'll say, Grandma, it's me. Grandpa, it's me. I'm in trouble. I need help. Now, all of these scams drive both the Attorney General and myself nuts. And we have that in common. But this one just drives us both up the wall, because I know for me, and I believe it's true for Tish too, we have members of our family that this could have worked on. My grandfather was 86 years old. His hearing wasn't great anymore at the end, but he was incredibly selfless and would wire me or my siblings in money in a heartbeat if he thought we were in trouble. Please do not send these people your money. Now, I know better than to mess with the love of a grandparent. Grandparents will run through walls for their grandchildren, and vice versa is true, by the way. So here's how you beat these soulless, awful, vile creatures who pull these scams. Ask the caller for a number to call them back, and ask them questions about your grandchild that only your grandchild would know or a real friend of theirs would know. They probably will not have a number to give you, and they definitely won't have the answers. Number two, ask for the number of the law enforcement agency or the car repair shop or the hospital they claim your grandchild is at. They will not want to give it to you in most instances. Number three, call their parents. What normally happens is they'll be able to tell you, TJ couldn't have possibly been arrested last night in another country. I just saw him at breakfast this morning. And, if it was my parents and if it was a Caribbean sounding or very, very warm sounding climate, my parents would say that I shouldn't be anywhere where the sun is that strong because I come back regular fried or extra crispy, as you might have noticed from my pigmentation. If for some reason calling their parents doesn't work, or the prior to asking for the information doesn't work, call your grandchild. Now, people of your grandchild's generation are notoriously bad at picking up the phone, but if we will pick up the phone for anyone, it would be grandma or grandpa. I'm not kidding when I say the love is unconditional. Or if you can, text them. Your grandchildren will text you back regardless of what they are doing, on a date with their boyfriend or girlfriend, in the middle of class, in the middle of test. God forbid driving. We don't want that. But the point is, reach out to them, make sure that they are okay. Do not trust this person on the phone, and do not send them your money. The best rule to follow when anyone calls you or emails you looking for money is this: never give money to someone who reaches out to you. Only give money to an organization or something that you've researched and you've decided through your check system is something that you are and believe is safe. And again, never give money to somebody who calls you and sets some sort of artificial deadline on it. If someone you love is in trouble, you will always be able to call them back. They will always leave a message on your answering machine. They will always wait until you can send them money. It doesn't have to be right now. They won't ask for that money to be in gift cards from stores at Stop and Shop. You know, those $50 American Express or MasterCard cards that can go anywhere? That's very fashionable now for scammers to ask you to go get lots of those and read them the numbers off the back. That's another way for them to get your money. A real family member or a friend who is in trouble will always be there when you try to call them back, and will always, if you've researched them, greatly accept your help on a timetable that you're comfortable with. Now, I've done these presentations, and I remember I did this one with Legislator Fleming, and it was one of my favorites. It was the two of us. I forget where we were because it was a couple of years ago. We've been working together for a couple of years now. And some very nice person stood up in the front row, and he said that he liked to take the bullet for everybody else, and he liked to answer these phone calls from folks. And he liked to let them talk for a while and tell them exactly where to go, sparing no detours, sparing no details, and telling them to take no detours in getting them, as I believe how he phrased it. He was very funny. And I'm not here to take away your hobbies, ladies and gentlemen, but I can recommend that you do not do that, because you're going to probably wind up getting a lot more of these phone calls if you answer the phone. A scam artist isn't going to necessarily tell if you tell them exactly where to go. They're just going to mark down that this person answers their phone, which means they're going to take a lot more cracks at you, which means that you probably will not fall for the grandparent scam because you saw that on YouTube, or you were on that call with the library with Legislator Fleming and Tish James's nice blonde boy, and you remembered that one. You're not going to fall for the sweepstakes or the IRS scam for those same reasons. But a scam that, as I open these things up for your questions that you might tell me about that I haven't heard about yet, you might fall for that one, as smart as you are, because everybody gets got sometimes, and everybody has a blind spot. So the safest way to keep you and your family safe is if the phone is ringing and you don't recognize the number, that's why you bought the answering machine. Let it do its job. These scams are, in fact, worldwide and global, and scammers are worldwide and global. So for instance, we have data on this. A lot of scam calls come to the United States from India, and that's not a pejorative. My wife is actually from India. My wife's from New Delhi, so I'm not looking for trouble. But it's true. A lot of scam calls come from New Delhi because a lot of call centers are in there, and a lot of scam calls come from Nigeria. So it is global. What a lot of the questions we get, Miss, in the United States is, and Legislator Fleming and I have dealt with this a lot, is folks calling and saying, well, I signed up for the do not call registry. Why isn't that helping? And so for everybody here, that piece of legislation was very popular. It was one of the most popular things our federal government had done in quite some time when it came out in 2003. It had some exceptions in it. It had exceptions for charities because they are allowed to raise funds over the phone. You want to make sure it's a legitimate charity first, however. So I would actually recommend that you thank a person for their information, regardless of whether it's a charity you like or not. There are lots of charities I do donate to on my own time, but I would suggest not doing it over the phone. I'd suggest doing your research, thanking them for the information, doing the research, and donating in a manner you feel more comfortable, whether it be online or other means. But what I say that to say this, the scams come from worldwide. And so the do not call registry, which was popular here in the United States, did not apply to people calling from other countries. And even if they did, the folks in the United States who were calling are fraudsters. So they don't care about their laws to begin with. So that's why that they are ineffective. And because these folks can use what are called burner phones, they use replications that you don't know what country they're calling from or where they are calling from, and that's a problem for us as well in terms of locating folks. So what we always say is we try to stress vigilance, and you doing the right thing, Miss, which you said you're doing, which I'm happy about, because once the money's gone, it's incredibly difficult for us to get it back. It's a needle in a haystack, and then some.
But by the way, it's interesting what you said about Nigeria. I'm not sure about India because I'm not aware of it. But Nigeria, I'm getting things constantly,
Email bot.
When you see the email and you see the $20,000 or whatever, you just cannot believe it, that it's really someone, dear beneficiary and all that stuff,
Well, go ahead, Miss. I'm sorry.
Sorry. I just wanted to say something slightly different. I know you talk about finances, but where I have a bit of problem, and I do have an IT background, I'm retired, but I have nearly 40 years of IT background, so maybe that's why I'm quite switched on. But one thing which I really get problem with when I get something from either Facebook or Microsoft, and I'm not a big Facebook person, I never liked it, but sometimes it's the only way to be in touch with people. And I don't know if it is Microsoft. I don't know if it is Facebook.
Right.
And that's where I have a problem. That's where I have a more problem, that someone logged into my, into my account or something. Not that I care very much because there is no information really, which means enough, it's just my name, and I keep it very minimal. Yeah.
Okay. Well, there's two things there to actually talk about, Miss, and thank you very much for that, because there's two things there that are useful. Number one, I want to talk a little bit about just scam and spoofing email, because everybody here is on Zoom, so they're fairly computer illiterate, I would imagine. But scammers, it's titled Smart Seniors. Sometimes that title sometimes breeds a little bit of, well, I am smart. Yes, you are. They get everybody. I mean, my brother's email has been hacked into. He's a corrections officer at Rikers, and he's 27 years. He's a very young. He grew up with computers. He's not an unsavvy or unsafe person. That's his job. His job is to be safe all the time. So he's somebody who is a very detail-oriented person. He still gets hacked. It happens to everybody. And in terms of Facebook, I will stay away from Facebook generally in terms of a commentary, but there are pieces of information there that are problematic sometimes. That is true, and that's something that the company's dealing with. But in terms of scams from that area, people claiming that your account was hacked and whatnot, be very careful about giving any sort of financial information and anything like that when you get an email. For example, what we were getting a long time ago was people saying that they were getting an email that they thought was from their Discover card or their MasterCard or something, and that said that there was a problem, and they were engaging with that email on their computer as they got it. That's a problem, because once they start doing that, if this is a scam email, which unfortunately some of them were, that person now has access to your computer because you're clicking the links. You do not want to do that. If anyone claims that it is your bank or your credit card via email, do not engage with that in any way. In fact, it's actually safer if you have an iPhone to answer your emails on a phone, because there's a mechanism in there that keeps the diseases off of your computer by doing it that way. And if you wind up in a scenario where somebody is claiming that their Discover card and you have a problem with your bill, go to the back of your card. On the back of that card, there's a phone number on that. Call that number. That way you're on the phone with whomever your credit card is, and then they can answer, no, you don't have a problem, Mr. Hatter, and you go, okay, thank you, and you ignore the email and move on with your day. So that way you have definitive answers with somebody who will tell you if there's a problem, and if there is one, who can help you. So thank you very much for talking with me, Miss. That was very helpful to get that information out. Steve, anybody else?
Let's see. Do we have any other questions for TJ?
The blonde is normally not this hard.
I'd like to just say that one of the things I've noticed, which I think some of the information that they're able to get the phishing from, are from some sites out there that advertise find anyone. And when you put in person's name on some of these sites, you'll get certain information that'll say, Joe Smith might know Pete Smith, might know Jane Smith. And there'll maybe even be an address listed there for them. And I know that one of the scams we got was the solar power scam, where the person would call up and, they would be like, is Joe Smith there? And it's like, I'm thinking to myself, it's somebody who is actually deceased,
Okay.
but they got, so what I try to do is I try to remove certain family members and myself from those databases. And it's hard to do that, but if you could get out of one of them, you end up dropping out of all those other databases that are out there. And I think that helps prevent people that are phishing, looking for information, like data mining.
Mm.
But in a bad way, data mining, like looking to see, because I have an uncle who lives in New York City who got a phone call, and the person said, "Oh, hey, it's your nephew, Michael." And he's like, "Okay." And he's talking to him, and he has a cousin, Michael, but not a nephew, Michael, that lives in Florida. And he said, "Michael, I haven't seen you in a long time." He's like, "Just for verification, what's your last name?" He's like, don't you know?
Yeah.
And he hung up. So, that's the kind of scams, that are going on. And there's also the car warranty ones, which we get quite often, a lot of voicemails for the car warranty.
Mhm.
This is your final notice. This is your final warning. So, you just gotta, if you have a car warranty, call the person you bought it from,
Mhm.
not that thing.
But odds are that does not apply to you. Odds are that that's just a catch-all scam and see what they get. So that's the buckshot approach. And some of them actually, Steve, can be very individualized. Actually, when we were talking with Ania from the UK, she mentioned Facebook, and specifically when the grandparent scam happens and there's a really big success rate, we're seeing that there's a correlation between how active the grandchild is on social media and whether or not it's successful. And I say that for this reason. Folks now of all ages in particular, but young is going to be more often, they tend to live their lives out loud. They're broadcasting where they are. They're checking in places on their Facebook and their Instagram and their Twitter and TikTok and WhatsApp. And I'm sure I'm missing something that I don't know of yet that exists. They're flagging where they are, which means that if I'm a scammer and that person doesn't have any privacy settings, and I know that they're in Jamaica, and I can call Lynn Farrow and know that her grandson is in Jamaica, that's going to register with Lynn a lot differently because I'll have that information, as opposed to someone random saying, "Grandma, it's me. I'm in trouble." It's, "Hi, Lynn. I'm your son's friend, TJ. We're here in Jamaica now. You've seen me in one of the pictures with him. Yeah, I'm the guy in the red bathing suit. Yeah, so we were out last night and such happened. Can you send some money for him because he doesn't want to tell mom and dad. He says you'd know why. I'm sorry. Boom. I've already got a story to tell you, Lynn. And that's the kind of thing we see that spikes the success rate. And just for folks here, I'm sure everybody would be conscious enough not to do this, but if you're going on vacation and the house is going to be empty, or you're snowbirding and you're going to another location around the country, try to keep that one off of Facebook or whatever your social media you have, because that's how you advertise Home Alone 2, the sequel, in your neighborhood. So I try to avoid that if at all possible.
Yeah.
Steve.
That's some of the other ones that I've kind of noticed from the phone calls that have come through, is they're using some sort of a voice activation thing, that because one left a phone number, and I took a phone that I had, like it was one of those pay-as-you-go phones.
Oh, you had a burner. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a burner, but I use it as like a test phone. And I called the number back, and they said, "Congratulations, you won a cruise. Aren't you happy?" If you said, "No, I'm not happy, leave me alone," it goes, "Okay, thank you, have a good day," and it hangs up. But if you say yes, it takes you on to the next step.
Right.
And then finally, if you give them like the right answers, it'll get you over to somebody on the phone. who says, yes, you've won the cruise and you only have to pay port tax.
Right.
And that's, so I mentioned that to people a lot. I said, don't call the numbers back if you see them on your caller ID, especially sometimes they're spoof numbers.
Yeah.
And it's actually someone's phone number that lives a few towns away. So,
Yeah.
you want to be.
Two things with that, Steve. First of all, that's really helpful, because what that shows me, it's a compliment to me. It shows that we're doing a good job of getting the word out, because I've been doing these presentations since I started with the office back in 2015. And you used to get a human the first time telling you want to cruise. So that means that they're getting the phone slammed down on them so often that they decided to automate the beginning portions of it to protect their scammers' fragile mental health. So that to me is a victory for the good guys. But the other piece of it is, and I think that this is really important to sort of underline here, is that there are scams that are just looking to get you on record saying yes. We were getting reports of folks that would call up and they'd say, hi, is this TJ Hatter? Yes. And once they have you recorded saying yes, they could use that to say, well, you agreed to this charge on such and such. We have you recorded saying yes. No, is that flimsy? Yeah, but it means it's a headache for you when you're trying to resolve a complaint against somebody. And it's just the best rule to follow is, if you don't recognize the number, let them leave a message. Because if it's a friend or a family member, if it's somebody who loves you, they'll leave you a message. If they don't leave you a message, you didn't need to talk to them to begin with. Yes, I remember this one. We were in Montauk and a woman came up to us afterwards. I remember her name actually, but I won't say that. She came up to us afterwards and she was like shaking. She was really visibly upset because it had happened to her that week. She had gotten a call from the term of art that Steve used, spoofing, but it's a dummy number. It replicates numbers. It's a computer program that replicates numbers. So it'll be a 631 or a 516 so that it looks more local, which means it's more likely that you will answer it. Because again, out-of-state numbers is an easy tip-off, or I don't know anybody from Ohio, I'm not going to answer this. So they used this spoofing technology to make it a 631 or a 516. The number that they had spoofed was her number. And she had one of those Optimum setups. I think it was Optimum, but she had one of those setups where the phone number came on the TV. And so she's watching TV and her own phone number came up. And so she was afraid somebody was in the house. She thought she was like in Scream, the movies, something like that. She was really upset. We had to talk to her, calm her down, said this happened a lot, but she was like, how did they get my number? It's the phone number. It's a computer program technology. Oddly enough, and I'm not a scammer in my part-time days, but their setup looks a little bit like what I'm and Steve have right now. It's a computer in front of them. It is headphones. There's a phone over here. It's plugged into the computer, and that phone is dialing countless numbers. And they hear in their earphones a ticking sound. And it's just the sound of dialing, dialing, dialing. And all they hear is somebody answers when somebody answers. So it's just dialing numbers over and over and over again. So if an answering machine's getting it, they're not picking up. They're surfing their web. If you pick up and say bad words to them and hang up on them, they're not picking up. It's when you pick up and they say hello or yes, then they have in front of them the scam they're running that day. And then depending on how sophisticated they are, they could have a box over here in the corner with your name, your age, information they have on you if this is a targeted scam. And they just work it exactly like the way that all of us are doing this call. It's really not that dissimilar a setup, and they can be set up anywhere. Steve, thank you for having me here at the East Hampton Library. Ania, thank you for all your questions. Thank you for everyone for listening. Thank you, Legislator Fleming, for having us. If you have any other questions, I believe, Steve, you have my contact information. The information I had is available in the chat. Brief correction, I apologize. 631-852-8400 is Bridget Fleming's number. That was corrected in the chat. So if you need to reach Bridget, that's her phone number. And with that, I thank you all very much for your time. And I hope the next time that I get to see you guys is in person.
Same here. Thank you, everybody. Have a great week ahead and wonderful weekend, and stay safe, and let the answering machine get it.
Cilantro, everybody.
Thank you very much.
Take care.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.